I was really just figuring out how to survive and how to stay safe. And there were some days where I really was not sure if I would see the mornings. I left with my 2 kids. I had to take responsibility for my life. I started to figure out and reclaim who I was. And that's really what started my personal development journey, was after I left that first marriage.
So as a successful leader, and you've got 500 plus people that you're helping to lead along with your team, how important is culture?
Without it, it's a very shaky foundation. It's not about position or title. It's about your ability to influence other people, earn your trust so I can lead you. Because without trust, we don't have anything.
What advice do you have to those people that are wanting massive growth for their own business?
Yeah, so many things, and not in any particular order, but I think first and foremost, it's
So Anna, thanks so much for being with us and helping us become more today. You know, your journey has been very interesting in leadership. So what inspired you to step into that leadership role?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Dianna. It's just a pleasure to spend time with you and to be on the podcast today. You know, it's a great question that you just asked. I think that if I'm honest, have always been a leader. I think that I've always been drawn to really just helping people and influencing people. My mom has shared a story. I was probably 5 years old on the playground, and within a few minutes I had 10 kids wanting to go home for lunch with me. So, you know, does that make me a leader? Maybe. But I just have always been drawn to being helpful, and I've never been afraid to stand out or be at the front of the room, so to speak. So I think leadership has just always been a part of who I am.
Yeah, so let's find out a little bit more about who Anna Gibbs is. Tell us a little bit about your background and some areas that you believe that you've become more and can help us with.
Well, I have been in sales or business development for over 30 years. I started when I was 18 out of high school. It was an opportunity that at the time probably I didn't realize, but it was an opportunity for me to learn a lot about using my natural gifts and really, I think, being comfortable with who I am and connecting with people. And I never felt like I was selling anything. I always felt like I was providing people with a solution or creating, you know, some type of outcome that they needed. So I started working for a pharmaceutical company, as I said, when I was only 18, which was a great experience and taught me a lot. And I went on to do other things that involved sales and marketing and business development, but it was always about people, and it was always about being in a place where I could create outcomes for other people and find my success through theirs.
Yeah, so at 18, that's very unusual to have that type of a position.
Yeah.
Was that a friend?
No, so I was, so I grew up in Yonkers, New York, which is right outside of New York City, in a very big Italian Catholic family. And I had started right after high school. I attended college for a little bit. And my intention was to major in psychology and minor in childhood education. At the same time, I was dating someone who was a little bit older than I was. And through some decisions with that relationship, the trajectory of my life changed very quickly. And so I decided to drop out of school and move in with this guy. It didn't turn out to be the greatest relationship, other than the fact that my 2 girls came from that. Unfortunately, it was a difficult relationship. He was abusive. And I was in that relationship for almost 10 years. And so when I made that choice to go off and move in with him at 18, I looked for a job, and I looked for an opportunity with this company that I was hired at, this pharmaceutical company. It was for customer service. But once they started interviewing me, they asked me if I'd ever thought about sales. And I had worked in retail through high school, so I, gave him a little bit of that background, and the next thing I knew, I was being trained to be a salesperson. So that was, it was just a sequence of events. It wasn't something that I really planned. But looking back, I think we can always agree that every decision or every choice we make, whether you could argue that it was the right choice or not, just creates the path that you're meant to be on. And so that's what started my sales career.
Connecting those dots looking backward. We can't connect them looking forward at all.
Right.
Yet You mentioned you were in this abusive relationship. During that time, were you growing? Were you seeking help? What was going on at that point?
Well, I think to be quite honest, I met him, like I said, right before I turned 18, and I left when I was about 20, almost 28, so it was about 10 years. A lot of the time I was surviving. I was just trying to figure out how to navigate the relationship, how to understand what I needed to do to keep myself safe. I had my daughter when I was 19, so only about a year into the relationship. And then her sister came along about 7 years later. So at one point, I had the two kids. And when I left that abusive relationship, my girls were 7 years old and 6 months old. So it was a lot to figure out. And I'll be honest, Diana, sometimes I feel like my 20s are a blur because I was really in a very different place in my life where I was really just figuring out how to survive and how to stay safe. And there were some days where I really was not sure if I would see the morning. So it was a very different life than what I've managed to build for myself today.
Well, and I love that you said that I managed to build because you had to make decisions along the way. So there had to be a pivotal moment in that relationship where you said, enough is enough.
Yeah.
How did you leave?
Well, actually, I think, again, there are times when we look back in our life and we realize that whatever you believe, I believe it's God, the universe, has to take control and make a decision for you. So it was a night where things were not good in the home. He had come home very angry and started, fighting with me. And I locked myself in the bathroom. And then the next thing I know, when I came out of the bathroom, there's a lot of things I don't remember specifically about that night. But the police were there because my 7-year-old called the police. And so the decision was really, it was my choice, but I believe it was made for me at that point where you realize enough is enough. And I was able, from that moment on, even though I wasn't sure what the next step would be, I wasn't sure what tomorrow would look like. I didn't really have a job at that point. I left with my 2 kids. I took the stuff off the changing table and the milk out of the fridge, and I think I had about $20 in my wallet. And,
oh, my word.
And just, figured out what I needed to do next and just let each day kind of unfold. And I did have a little support around me, but most people did not know that I was living in that abusive relationship. So that was also part of what I had to learn to navigate. Now I had to tell the people around me that this is what I was experiencing. So I think that once I realized, and of course I didn't deserve it. I didn't, ask for that kind of abuse, but you realize that you still have to take responsibility for everything in your life. It was as I started to reclaim my life and figure out who I was, because I really lost that in that first marriage. And I was young, as I said, I met him at 18, so this was, between the ages of almost 19 and 27. Those are important years where you're really starting to come out and develop, come into your own, and you're in school or starting a career. And I didn't have all of that, but I feel that experience, even though I lost a little of my identity in that relationship, once I left and took responsibility I had to take responsibility for my life, I started to figure out and reclaim who I was. And that's really what started my personal development journey, was after I left that first marriage.
Well, you definitely have grown tremendously. Here it is, about 20 years later, and you own
30,
offices
almost
of
30,
real estate.
28 years later, yeah.
Yeah, 28 years. Oh, my goodness. So we're sitting there going, wow. I just trust the people listening to
I
this.
talk about it with you today, but a lot of people don't know that about my story. And the interesting thing is we all have a story. And that's probably one of the things I resonated most with your book, Becoming More, because my whole life has been a journey of becoming more and redefining and developing. And I certainly wouldn't want to go back there, and I wouldn't wish on anyone yet. I don't have any regrets either, because what I experienced is how I, became who I am today, and how I started to see life differently and really understand the fact that we only have this one life, and so we have to do whatever we can to make not just the best of it, but become the best we can be in this lifetime.
Well, I know that's somebody that you're always striving to become more, and that's why I wanted you on the podcast, Anna. One thing, though, that really hits home with me is you make a decision to leave, and then every single day you had to make a decision to stay away and to make things happen for yourself. You didn't have anybody giving you money anymore. You literally did everything yourself. And I love that you took responsibility. So very quickly, bring us from that day that you left to where you are now, because definitely you've come a long way.
Thank you. Listen, I think it was gradual and then sudden in some cases, where as I started to understand more about who I was and who I wasn't, because I had to unlearn a lot of the things that my first husband wanted me to believe about myself, right? Because he was focused on manipulation and keeping me mentally, down. So I had to unlearn a lot of that and really start to understand that I had the power and the control to do whatever I wanted to do. So like you said, you make those decisions. And, I continued on the path of working with people and being in sales. And so as I started to build my career back up, I think that I was probably more tenacious than most people, because I knew what it felt like to not have opportunity or not have choices or not have some of the things that I started to reap the benefit of in terms of my career and in my growth. So I find motivation and I find significance in getting those results, because to me, I take nothing for granted. So I worked for a company, a fire and water damage restoration company for 8 years. I loved it because I was doing marketing for them, I was doing sales, and I was able to go out there and connect with people, provide solutions, but I was building something. I was helping them move from one level of sales to the next level and the next level, opening markets and creating more possibilities for the company. And that was really rewarding for me. And I think looking back, I realized that fuel was there because I finally had the ability to control something and to use my talents and to see how I could multiply that and create great opportunities and outcomes for myself and other people. So that started a very successful sales career.
Yeah, so you went from being pushed down to finding that success. Did you use affirmations or have mentors that were helping you at that time, Anna?
Well, again, so a couple things, right? Being in sales, I think we always have the opportunity to learn from a lot of great sales leaders and coaches and mentors. And that's when I started to, as I said, my personal development journey really started. Another thing just to kind of connect to also, when I left my first marriage, that was in 1998. And so one of my mentors for a long time, she's sitting behind you, is Oprah Winfrey. So I would watch the Oprah Winfrey show, right? And she had amazing thought leaders, authors, right? And she was the first person on TV anyway, as far as I know, to really open up conversations around positive psychology, right? And I shared with you that my desire as a young person was to major in psych. That was always been my calling. And so all those things fascinated me, and I started to do a lot of research about the brain and understanding how I could reprogram my thoughts and how I could see change very quickly in my own beliefs. And so that, coupled with the environment of being in sales and having, great mentors, some of which I did not meet, like Jack Canfield or John Maxwell. I can remember, reading John's books and listening to things on audio. And now when I fast forward 30 years later, I've met John Maxwell and been able to talk with him numerous times. And I wrote a chapter that was featured in Jack Canfield's last book. So when we talk about how life can change and how you can have these 360-degree moments, I've certainly been blessed to experience that a few times now.
Well, yet they changed because you started designing your life. You
Yes.
weren't willing to take a life by default anymore by whatever your husband or ex-husband had been giving you. You literally said, I'm in charge of my life. And I think that defining moment has to come in everybody's life at some time.
Yes.
So that defining moment, was it when you left, or did you have other defining moments that helped you
I think I've
build?
had numerous defining moments. I like to think we all do. I think certainly when I left, that was one. I don't know if I quite understood the impact of that moment until later on. Yet when I look back, there's always a defining moment. I think 2024 was a challenging year for me in a lot of ways. There were a lot of defining moments just over the last 12 months because we're always growing and we're always being stretched. So you're going to find that what you learned and what you've implemented before may not be enough to continue to move you in the direction of all your goals and dreams, and so you get challenged in the middle of that. You get stretched, and you get to a point of even maybe feeling a little burnt out. So I think it's normal for those cycles to show up. And, it is always about making a choice. And I think that, listen, everyone's story is different. Maybe someone's story doesn't look like mine, and mine may sound very tragic or traumatic. And at the time it was. Yet, we've all experienced trauma. We've all experienced moments that challenge us. And so the real question is, what will you do with that opportunity?
Yeah, it is about the decisions. In fact, I have a statement that we come into this world looking very innocent, and we go out of this world looking like our decisions. And a lot
Mm,
of people tend to be the victim and say, oh, poor, woe is me. Yet you never took on that victim role. In the story of your life, I hear where you learned very quickly that you had to be the hero of your own story, that the victim wasn't going to be you. You had already put up with a villain in your life. And so that wasn't part of your story that you ever wanted to be. Yet you went on to be the hero of your own life story. And now you coach and you lead and you mentor other people, which is fabulous. So let me ask you, what's been your greatest challenge as a leader?
probably that moment, whether it's temporary or not, when you realize you want it more for them than they do. When you see someone who has such great potential and they're just sort of stuck in their own way, and as a leader, I think it's our responsibility with a little balance of care and candor to help them move through that. And so I think that can be challenging when you just see someone trying to fight their way out of the paper bag. And so you just have to be able to support them enough so that they can see it differently.
You've been known as a successful leader, and yet what does success as a leader for you look like?
I think when the people in my world are thriving, when they're winning and they're achieving the goals that they've set out for themselves, then I feel like I'm successful. And because I believe as a leader, right, we're casting the vision. And so in the last nearly 14 years, I've been with Keller Williams, and we run, I'm the general manager of a few market centers. So I not only have over 500 agents in those market centers, but I have a staff, a team of people within all of them that I lead. And so, you can get caught up in a lot of things like numbers and market share and profit, which is all important. Yet I also have to take a look at, are the people thriving? Are the people in our organization feeling like we're making a difference in their lives? That's how another way I measure my success.
So, as a successful leader, and you've got 500 plus people that you're helping to lead along with your team, there are some things that you really look at. How important is culture and making certain that everyone understands the culture that you desire for your company?
Huge. It was just a couple weeks ago, we were reviewing as a team the strategic plans in all the offices, and we were talking about increasing or maintaining and increasing retention, right? And so one of our staff members started saying, well, the way to do that is productivity. If the agent is making money, they're happy and they're going to stay. And I said, well, perhaps. And what else? Because you could be making a lot of money in a company yet feel like you're not connected, or feel that you don't have the support, or feel like the culture is not in alignment with your values. And so I think culture is huge, because I can easily help someone strategize and get tactical about making more money or having more sales. But if the culture is not there, then the environment is not going to support all of it. And so I think that, culture is how we treat each other, and we have to take a look at what are the beliefs, what are the values, how are we connecting, how are we really showing people our authenticity in wanting to see them win and to thrive. So I think that without it, it's a very shaky foundation.
Yeah, well, and culture is what we tolerate, not what we talk about, right? So let's say somebody is out of culture. What do you do as a leader, Anna?
Well, I think, okay, case by case may be a little different, right? But I think first and foremost, I try my best to always take a time out. This is a big part of how I process or strategize. I take a time out and say, what's happening right now? What, if I can survey what's going on and I can try to understand what's going on, then at least it gives me some intel. But then I really have to compare what I think I know is going on with the reality of what's happening. And that's just asking good questions. So I think number one is not jumping to any type of conclusion and try to understand what's really happening and why is it happening. Because if somebody's out of culture, right, I believe we know everything that we do is based on some motivation. So what's happening? What is the motivation for that person? Is there something going on in their life that we don't know about? Is there a reason why they might be out of culture? Or are we just not in alignment with our values? And honestly, if we're not in alignment with our values, we've seen it happen where we may make a decision to get out of business with that person, or they might make the decision to get out of business with us. And that's okay, because again, if we really are not on the same value basis, it just is going to cause too much friction. It's never going to work.
Well, and I love that you said ask questions. Come from curiosity instead of judgment. There's many leaders out there that just jump to conclusions and say off with their heads, right? Because they never ask a question. They never give feedback. How important is it for us as leaders to be giving feedback to our team members and to people within our organization?
Yeah.
Good and bad, care and candor.
Yeah, I think it's everything. And so, listen, I mentioned I come from a big Italian family, so I can run hot on emotion. I'm a high
Italian, so I get it.
Right. I always tell everyone, don't let my last name fool you. My maiden name is Moschetta. So that's another thing I've learned. It's another skill I've developed. Certainly, you mentioned I'm a coach. I have numerous coaching certifications, so we learn how to stay in curiosity. We learn how to be objective. We learn how to move our biases aside, our emotions aside. Now, we're human, so sometimes it might creep up on me, but for the most part, it's just staying in logic and trying to help other people around you do the same, right? Because if you can diffuse the situation and get everybody thinking, then we have an opportunity to pull it apart and figure it out. But if everyone's running hot on emotion, then you're never going to get to the root of the problem, because everyone's taking it from their own perception, their own feelings, and then we're just going to continue to be off sides.
Well, and the stress levels that we get under. And I love the fact that you said we're human.
Yeah.
If people expect the leader to be perfect all the time, I think they're going to always be in a disbelief of some type, right? And so go ahead.
I was just going to say that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my leadership journey, is that I don't have to be perfect to be a great leader. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I'm sure some of it had to do with, my previous programming and just a lot of some of my own natural behavior profile. But I really thought for a long time that I had to show that I always knew the answer, or that I always had it together. And I'm glad that I've learned in the last 15 years or more that it's not about that. I think that you can't expect a leader to know everything or have all the answers. You can expect them to want to help you figure it out, but I can't be perfect. And I think that most people would prefer a leader to just be real and genuine than perfect. I know whenever I've shown my team my own vulnerability, they've met me with so much more respect. They've given me the feedback. You asked about feedback. They gave me the feedback that they needed to see that I was just as human as they were. And I think that's important too, because sometimes we may inadvertently try to put ourselves up here as leaders, and it's not about position or title. It's about your ability to influence other people. And so by showing them that you do have the same concerns, fears, or limiting beliefs that they might, can help them to see you in a different capacity. But then when I show them how I can move through that into, okay, problem solving, or, let's get to the next level of thinking, then I show up as a leader, because we don't want to get stuck there. But the fact that we got there just means that we're human.
See, I love the fact a lot of people don't expect leaders to make mistakes. And there's some areas where, man, it's almost like off with your head if you make a mistake, which means you're never really going to grow.
Right.
It's when you allow your people to make some mistakes and then give them feedback through care and candor that they can change. Yet if it's don't make mistakes, off with your head, I'll never ask you a question because I know all the answers, then that leadership, really that environment is hard for people to thrive in. So we all have attributes, we all have habits, we all have personalities, and we all have qualities. So what leadership qualities have you seen in other people that you truly work to exemplify in yourself?
Definitely compassion. Having the empathy to show people I want to understand. Even if I don't understand, the fact that I want to understand. I want to support you. I want to earn your trust so I can lead you, because without trust, we don't have anything. And so, when we're talking about leadership, that is the cornerstone of all of our relationships, trust. So I want to really exude, I want people to feel that I am someone who just naturally cares about them and wants to see them succeed. And so if you believe I want you to win, then I believe you will come to me with your challenges, you'll come to me with your wins, you'll come to me with your questions. And I don't ever want to be the leader that when my phone number shows up, they're like, oh, I want to be the person that they're seeking out. I want to be the person that they feel, they can come to when they want, to figure it out. And that's who I want to be as a leader. But I also want to be someone who has standards. I also want to be a leader, who can show the importance of why we need the standards and create the structure. Because in all of that, we also see that we can thrive and we can be more productive. Because without having the structure, then we might all be having a good time, but at the end of the day, we have to, be aware of the results that we're trying to get. So there's a balance of those things all the time. And back to your question about feedback, because I don't think I ever answered it. I think that it's so important to give feedback, because if I am working with you and you don't give me the information, the observations of what I'm doing well, then I may not feel motivated to continue, because a lot of us who, like for me, I have a very high I on the DISC profile, so I need to hear the recognition, right? And it's not because, it's not an ego thing. It validates that it doesn't validate me, but it validates that what I'm doing is working. And that's the motivation that will allow me to keep going, but also get even more creative. And so the other part of feedback that's important is knowing if I have to adjust, modify, if there's something I need to do better. Because if we are surrounding ourselves with talented people want that information. They want to be able to succeed, and they want to be able to bring the results. So if you don't provide the feedback, whether it's good or bad, and if you don't provide it in a way that makes them understand this conversation is for growth, and not for, it's nothing punitive, it's for opportunity, then I don't know how you would really become more. I don't know how you would grow, and I don't know how the organization would move forward without it.
Well, you're someone who definitely is willing to look in the mirror and say, my business grows to the extent that I do. So you're constantly growing. And yet you're making such a great impact on people, Anna. So share with us one time as a leader that you truly felt like, man, I made such an impact that I want to do that again. I want to do more of that.
Well, thank you for that question. There's so much power in reflection. I'm very fortunate that as I said, for the last almost 14 years, I've been working with realtors and really coaching them and consulting them and attracting talent to our company. And in doing that, I have been a part or a catalyst to a lot of growth. And so I've been blessed with the feedback. I've been blessed with people saying thank you and sharing what they've been able to accomplish. I mean, it ranges from helping agents get out of debt, helping agents see that they could outperform even their own dreams, helping them create wealth opportunities for their family, really changing lives. And I think at the end of the day, that's one of the things we all have to really, I think, own, is that no matter what you're doing, you have the power to impact somebody through your thoughts, through your words, through your actions, whatever, medium you decide to do that in. Maybe you're not going to write a book, or maybe you're not going to host a podcast, or maybe you're not going to be Oprah Winfrey, but whatever you are doing, if you're around other people, you have the power to lead and you have the power to change a life. And don't ever underestimate how even just one small gesture, whether it's a word of encouragement or it's a strategy session or it's you sharing something you've done in your life personally or professionally that person took and ran with, you have the power to create incredible change. And maybe we'll never see it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
As a leader, we do have a lot of power given to us just with that position, right? And a lot of people want to follow us because of the position, yet you work diligently as a leader, and you're also a great listener. How do you balance that leading with listening to go up those levels of leadership from position to eventually getting to the pinnacle leader that you desire to be?
So I think that you can't I said something a minute ago about earning their trust and earning the right to lead people. And I think you can't get there without being a good listener first. And even in my ability to ask powerful questions, I have to be a good listener. I might come in with a question or two, just to be prepared for a conversation or an opportunity with someone. But then I really want the rest of that conversation to be naturally flowing from what I'm hearing from the other person. So actively listening means that you're connected, you're engaged, you're present, and that you don't stand on any ulterior motive other than wanting to understand and provide that person with the guidance or support that they expect from a leader. And so listening, communicating is definitely an art and a skill that if anyone's looking to raise their leadership skills in 25, you might want to look at communication as a start.
Well, you're constantly learning. And
Always.
So personal development is very important to you. What does personal development have to do with our leadership and helping other people?
Well, you can't give what you don't have. So at the end of the day, I'm pouring into people all the time. And if I don't do what I need to do to fill the cup up again, then at some point I lose my effectiveness as a leader. And so I also think, a lot of what I've talked about reveals some things about, I guess, my behavior profile, which is that I'm naturally very curious. And so I believe you can learn to be more curious too. Yeah. I think that you can develop your curiosity. And so I'm always looking to learn new things because I'm curious. I want to dig into some things. And I mentioned that 24 was a little bit challenging for me, and for different reasons. The market's been different. And I realized, one of the things that I wanted to spend some time on was just sharpening my own leadership skills, because I think there are certain things about leadership that are always going to be true. And yet the world is constantly changing and evolving. And every generation that comes into the workforce has a different set of beliefs, a different set of values, a different perspective, because of when they were born, because of who raised them, because of social media. I mean, it could go on and on and on. So I can't always be the same leader I was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or even maybe yesterday. So if we're not constantly learning and developing our own skills, then at some point I think we lose our effectiveness.
Well, and you're very effective in the fact that you literally understand that you've got to lead different people different ways. You don't lead them all the same. So what do you do to discover who the people are and truly understand how to lead each and every individual?
Yeah, a lot of things like we've been talking about, really listening, and I do connect with people, I think, intuitively and energetically too. I'm a pretty good read of people. I pretty much can figure out, let's say, your disc profile in a couple of minutes, and I'm probably pretty accurate. And so that comes with time, that comes with some practice. Again, it's about making sure that you are putting some time into learning the skill sets that will make you a better reader of people, better, understand behavior profiles. But it's understanding that everyone does come at you with their own set of experiences. They all have their own filters on. And so I have to be in curiosity. I have to seek to understand. I have to put my own thoughts and biases aside, a lot of things we've been talking about. And so I apply it. I don't just talk about it, I apply it. And I think it's also about making sure that when you are connecting with that person or meeting with that person, that you give them 100% of yourself. Because if I'm distracted even just a little bit, I'm going to miss something you said, or I'm going to miss a cue. I'm going to not pick up on some energy, and then I may not get the read I need. And so that's important. But then once I start to get the read, I'm going to validate it with you. I'm going to, ask you some questions around, so how do I win with you? What do I need to know about working with you? What's most important to you? Maybe I'm going to give them I do a lot of exercises with people that I coach or consult, like assessments. It could be a values assessment. It could be a behavioral assessment, so that it starts to back up everything that I think I've been thinking and feeling about this person, so I'm not just acting from my own hunch. And so it's a little bit of time and effort to really understand where they're coming from. And then you have to be adaptable as a leader, to not be the same leader for everyone. You have to have some ability to adapt, because what you need from me might be different than what they need from me over here.
Well, you've grown this company from nothing to over 500 agents, you and the people that are on your team. So tell me, what are some of the greatest skills that you've developed? Because I know you measure everything and you reflect a lot. What advice do you have to those people that are wanting massive growth for their own real estate companies, or even their business, regardless of what business they're in?
Yeah, so many things, and not in any particular order, but I think first and foremost, it's understand who you are first. Understand what you represent. What are your values? What's your mission? What is it that you offer that makes someone want to even talk with you, right? What makes you the place that anyone feels that they could thrive? Because if you can bring the value, then I have the opportunity to change a life or change a business. And so it starts with us. I think it always starts with us. Even leadership starts with how we lead ourselves. And so I would say the first thing is take that inventory of your company and ask yourself, what is your value proposition? What do you stand for? What are your standards, and what is it that makes you that place that someone would want to come and align themselves with? And then I think it's about being passionate that you can take all of that and change lives. When I've done, I guess you can call it recruiting, right? I've done a lot of recruiting. I've brought a lot of people to our company over the last more than a decade, and I never really look at it as recruiting, just like I never look at sales as selling. I look at it as connecting, and I look at it as finding a need and providing a solution. And so if I can make your life bigger and better by bringing you to this company, then I'm doing that for you first. That's what it's about. And so in order for me to do that, I've got to learn what you need, and I've got to ask you a lot of questions. And so you've got to get comfortable with that, because I think what happens is a lot of times people go out there and they're just selling all over the place, and it just doesn't feel as genuine. It doesn't feel like, what's in it for me kind of thing. So I've always removed myself from that equation and just always focused on what that other person needs. And I can only know what you need if I ask you.
That's so good, because that's so important. And we know that people buy into the leader before they'll actually join a company. So they absolutely have to buy into you. Now, you're part of our mentorship program, which we're so excited for you being there, because you add so much value. And we've been talking about casting vision. How important is it that you continually cast that vision, Anna?
It's everything because, why would I get in the car with you and take a trip if I didn't know where I was going? I mean, maybe I would with you, Dianna, but just to spend time with you. But at the end of the day, right, we need to know where we're going. So the vision is important, and I think it's also what aligns us. Because if your vision doesn't align with mine, then I may want to go on the trip but not with you, right? So we have to have the vision, and we have to be clear about it, and we have to be able to communicate it. And so, and I appreciate what you said about people connecting with the leader. I'm almost embarrassed to tell you that, I mean, there's been hundreds of people over the years who have told me that if it was because of you that I came over. And I'm always, I'm always appreciative to hear that. And I always try to get them to see it differently, because it's not really about me, but I understand what they're saying. It was about the way I made them feel. And that's huge, right? And so they really made the decision because of what they saw as an opportunity. They're being kind when they say it was about me, but I also know it's because of the power of the connection I was able to create. And you can't
I
do
think it's
that
because
unless it's authentic.
I want to correct you there. I think it is because of your authenticity. I think it is because of that energy. When you care about other people, it shows up because you prepare for that meeting. So many people go into a meeting as a leader and just go, "Oh, I'm the leader. I got this all figured out, and we'll go with it," right?
Yeah.
Yet you go in to truly understand who those people are, to truly understand if this is the place that's the best place for you, because they're interviewing you just like you're interviewing them, right?
Yeah,
And if you
100%.
come across as, hey, this is all about me, I want to recruit you so I can add you as a number to the bottom line. I've never seen you at your very bottom line. You want to make a profit. You're very good at that. Yet I can honestly say it's because you care about people. And I think that's a quality that people pick up on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I believe that is true, and I'm intentional about that. And sometimes I don't even have to work that hard at it. It's just part of, I think, who I am, and that's why I will say too, for anyone listening, if you haven't really figured out what your strengths are, you've got to do that now, first thing in 2025, because when you really own your strengths and you really understand your own value proposition, I have been able to really work in that strength zone and use that to not just my advantage, but everyone's advantage, because I believe that that's what's helping me live out my purpose. And so I get excited when I can see someone figuring it out with me. I get excited when, we talk about this as coaches, right? When we get the aha look, that moment, right?
Yeah.
When they have an aha, I live for that moment. And I do prepare and take that meeting seriously, because time is precious. And so it's my time, it's their time. And I believe if someone, in the context that we're talking about, if someone agrees to meet with me, there's something there, right? There's something that they want to learn. There's something that they want to figure out. There's something that they even may want me to prove wrong or right, whatever it is. So I don't want to squander the opportunity, and I don't want to be disrespectful of their time. So I go into that meeting prepared, but also open and willing to come from curiosity, and really make it about them. I mean, one of the first things I ask someone when we sit down is, tell me what is the most important thing we could talk about today. Tell me what you need to know, or tell me what question is, burning, your mind or keeping you up at night, because it's not about me coming in with my own presentation or agenda. I have the information that they want or need, but I need to know what they need first.
As a leader, I think it's such a great question, what keeps you up at night? And so for you as a leader, what keeps you up at night, Anna?
That I'm still making an impact. Did I bring enough value today? Am I doing all the right things? I think that was one of the things that felt challenging about 2024 because I'm just going to be honest, some things were really difficult. We were not always on goal, and it was a real, uphill battle. And listen, that's what business is. It's never an easy road, right? Business is, you're not promised anything, so you have to work at it, and it's always about being strategic and pivoting and knowing what you have to do and being tenacious and gritty. Yeah, we're human, so there were some nights when I went home with saying, am I still bringing value to this organization? Kind of a higher level question than saying, is it me? And I think that's what keeps me up at night is knowing that I still bring the value.
Yeah, because adding value is so important to you. Have you ever questioned if you're the right leader?
Oh, every day.
Yeah,
Every
I think
day.
that's something for people they need to hear, because a lot of times they hear, well, if I'm questioning if I'm the right leader, I must not be the right leader. Yet when you desire to improve, I think sometimes we're harder on ourselves than we are on anybody else.
Oh yeah, I definitely am harder on myself than anyone else is. I have a wonderful business partner, Rosemary. As you know, Rosemary Pilati. Uh,
Yes.
she started out as my boss. She hired me, and I've earned the right now over the last 14 years to be considered her business partner. And I'm the general manager of the organization. I work with her very closely, and I have ownership in our companies, and it's been an incredible journey. And we were having this conversation last year, and she said, I don't know why you're so stressed. She says, because I'm your biggest fan. I see how hard you're working. I see the things you're doing. And sometimes you just need to hear that, because you can be hard on yourself. Being a leader, I think if you really are embracing the leadership journey, then you realize what's at stake. And it is not for the faint of heart. It is for someone who really wants to create an impact and really help other people. And for me personally, if I feel that I'm not creating the impact, something has to shift. I have to, and I think the first thing I always do is take a look at what can I do differently.
I think that's the very best thing, because when things aren't going correct, that's where we have to go, is what am I doing? What can I change?
Yeah.
Because that business, it is true, the business grows to the extent that we do. And as our friend John Maxwell always tells us is, hey, there's no two great days in a leader's life, two great
Yeah.
consecutive days in a leader's life, that sometimes leadership is tough. And that
Yeah.
roller coaster ride that you're on sometimes goes very high, and then it takes a very big dip. Yet,
Well, yeah. I just want to say one quick thing, Diana, if I may. That's why I got so excited to be in your mentorship program, because it's where I instinctively knew, without even knowing who was going to be in the group, that it would be, first of all, because you put it together, it would be like-minded people, it would be high level thinkers, it would be leaders. And that's where I knew I would get support and where I would get more influence too, because leaders need other great leaders around them to constantly push them and help them to see things bigger, or see things differently as well. So that was why I was excited to be in the mentorship group.
well, I'm so excited that you are part of that, because you're a maximizer. You want to help other people maximize who they are.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of your biggest strengths, is that you're there to say, what about this person? What do I see in them? And then help through equipping them, through empowering them, and helping them maximize those strengths to their utmost. So what is your final words that you have for us today? What is it that you truly want us to get out of this podcast, that you said, wow, if I could teach one thing, this is what it would be?
That you are an incredible gift to the world, and that as soon as you figure out what those gifts are, figure out how to put them to good use and use them to help other people, to create an impact and influence others. And it all shows up differently for every one of us, but I think that we have to understand that, as I said earlier, this is our one great life. So how do you want to create that life by design? How do you want to become more? How do you want to connect with people who will help you do that? Because it's important. And I think the greatest project you could ever work on is yourself.
Well, and I love that word connection, because it's so important. So how would someone connect with you if they
Oh,
would
yeah.
like to obtain coaching or talk a little bit more about your business?
Yeah, thank you for that. So you can find me if you go to coachannagibbs.com. You'll find a lot of information there about me. Also, I host my own podcast. It's called Monday Morning Mojo with Anna Gibbs. Dianna was just on my podcast. So you can find me on any platform where you listen to podcasts. And again, that's Monday Morning Mojo with Anna Gibbs. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find. So I would love to connect. And I would love for anyone listening, if they have anything they'd like to share with me to, provide me with that feedback. I would love to hear from you.
And can they reach you on Facebook or Instagram? How would they follow
Yeah.
you there?
Yeah, so Instagram, it's at Coach Anna Gibbs. On Facebook, you can find, I have a private group for Monday Morning Mojo. You can find me on Facebook as Anna Gibbs, LinkedIn as well. So yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, and
YouTube.
I look forward to our mentorship call tomorrow as well, Anna. I'll be seeing you again. And so
Yes.
thank you so much for being part of this. You are truly a great leader. And to
Thank
go
you.
from where you were, making that decision to leave that environment, to leave your home, take your two children, not having anywhere to go, not having a job, $20 in your pocket, and growing yourself to where you now run companies with over 500 people, having a great business partner in Rosemarie, all of the things that you have accomplished, and yet still being humble enough to say, I still need to learn, and to joining mentorship groups like ours to where you are learning and you're contributing every day. Can't thank you enough. So appreciative of you, my friend.
Thank you. Same. Thank you for always being such a great mentor and someone that I've always learned so much from. And I'm blessed to have you in my life. So thank you so much.
Well, and I'm blessed to have you. Until then, be sure and subscribe to Becoming More, where you too can become more through listening to the journeys and the successes and failures of other people. We appreciate you. Every Tuesday, you can get this into your email box just by subscribing. So, see you soon.